Has anyone figured out who opened the bedroom drapes? In The Godfather Part II, some questions remain unanswered, and together with finding out who murdered the gunman, no one really knows who opened the drapes. The movie never reveals the answer, but this is a question worth exploring. It's the one that starts it all. So help me unpack this baby and let's try to figure it out. It's easy to gloss over this detail when you watch the 3-hour movie, but for fans of the genre and the die-hard fans of the film, it's a detail worth delving into. First, we dissect the bedroom scene. Michael Corleone has arrived home. His wife, Kay, is asleep. Michael looks at his son's drawing, clearly visible by the light from outside the windows. He doesn't notice anything out of place, not yet. Kay wakes up. They do what couples do behind closed doors, talk. Then she notices the drapes. They're wide open. Now, it isn't so much that Kay is a modest woman. It's really more of a practical matter. With the drapes open, the room was brightly lit, enough for Michael to see his son's artwork. When Kay asks about the drapes, in an instant, Michael must realize what this could mean, and just in time too. Because moments later, gunmen start shooting up the room from right outside. Michael drops down and pulls Kay off the bed. He shields her from the projectiles of the splintered wood and the shards of broken glass. It must have been terrifying. Without question, Michael is enraged. Not only because it's an attempt on his life, but because it happens in his home, where his wife sleeps, where his children play. And if they had a dog, just imagine. Don't worry, this isn't about John Wick and the Russian mob. This is the Italian mafia. They're only out to kill the Godfather. No big deal, right? Well, it is. Not just because he's the boss. Here's why. Killing a mob boss is done in public. It's the unwritten rule. If you recall, The Godfather Part I, Vito Corleone was shot on the street, and when Michael orchestrates the hits on the rival bosses of the 5 families, none of them happen in their residences. Bartini, in fact, dies a very public death, on the steps of the courthouse. This is the way it's done, and for good reason. Mob hits aren't personal. They're just business, and they're done in public. It's the best way to send a message. You don't jeopardize civilian bystanders. Remember Nicky from Casino? He killed those 2 guys called the M&M murders because those morons recklessly gunned down a civilian on top of everything else. It was on mob turf. When a boss hit is done at his residence, not only is it personal, but it brings it too much heat. In fact, even today, it's almost never done, not at the target's home, and not in front of his family. The fact that it was done at Michael's home means that this was personal. If there is any symbolism here, I'd like to know what you have in mind. So the question still remains, who opened the drapes? Obviously it wasn't Kay. Even if Kay could fall asleep with the glare of those lights, she was a woman of her time, modern but dignified. Knowing that security walked around at all hours of the night, Kay, clad only in lingerie, would have never paraded herself in front of those windows. She would have made damn sure that the drapes were drawn. Now, if we were to leave no stone unturned, like the good detectives we're trying to be, let's just say Michael left them open. Absent-mindedly. Well then, it's easy to shoot that one down now. No pun intended. It couldn't have been. He wasn't home. More importantly, can you imagine? A mob boss who is easily distracted? He would be eaten alive. He wouldn't last a day. It would make the movie fall apart. Michael's brother, however, now that's a suspect worth considering. Why Fredo? There has always been a speculation that Fredo must have done it. You see, only people with access to the bedroom should be on the suspect list. Someone close to Michael and Kay? That's Fredo. Based on the adage of motive, means, and opportunity, here we go. Did Fredo have a motive to betray his brother? Of course he did. It's the main reason for his existence. Fredo's motivations are overwhelming. He thinks he should be the boss, in spite of being his own reason for his failures. To Fredo, nothing is his fault. Never mind that he failed to protect his father, Don Vito, when he was shot. He hated Michael for being chosen to take their father's place. He whines about it. He empathetically reminds Michael that, by virtue of being the older brother, it is his right to be appointed as godfather. And also because, he's smart and all that. Fredo resented being the errand boy, so yes, Fredo had motive. As for opportunity, this one is too easy. He had this in spades. Fredo is family after all. He could freely go anywhere. He definitely could have opened the Drapes. Now, did Fredo have the means? Well, yes and no. He was capable. His blind hatred for Michael meant that he could have opened the Drapes if told it would lead to better things for him, sure. But also, no. Fredo wasn't capable of having a hand in Michael's assassination. He didn't have the brass for it. He didn't have the guts to slit the gunmen's throats either, did he? And if Fredo was instructed to sneak in while Kay slept, if he was instructed to open the Drapes, wouldn't he have known why? No matter how incompetent or dumb he was, wouldn't he have guessed Michael would be killed through a clear window? Fredo didn't have the heart to have Michael killed. He never meant Michael any harm. But more than this, we have no evidence Fredo did anything that night. Remember, too, that although this was a mob family, it was still an Italian-American one. If you were to ask around, you'd be told that this prospect is a hard sell. So, the attempt on Michael's life fails. Fredo receives a call from Johnny Ola, and he feels betrayed. That couldn't have been a ruse, could it? We learn much later in the film that Fredo reveals to Michael, no, he insists he didn't know it was going to be a hit. Fredo's sincerity was palpable. Was he lying? I don't think so. Not just that, take a look at Fredo. This guy is not a practiced liar. If we can agree on that, then we can build our case from here. There are few things that Fredo must have been good at. Deception isn't one of them. So again, either Fredo is a skilled liar who took part in planning his brother's murder and opened the Drapes in the bedroom, then killed the two gunmen, or we all agree that he was a terrible liar, had no clue about the assassination plot. Someone else snuck into the room, and someone other than Fredo killed the gunman. Despite near universal agreement about Fredo opening the Drapes, there's a chance he didn't do it. Yes, I'm saying there's a chance, which begs the question, if not Fredo, then who? I came across an interesting idea that suggests it was Fredo's wife, Deanna. If we were to profile her, we'd see a wife who didn't like her husband, his family, and anything about their culture. However, she had millions of reasons to stay married to him. If she was bribed, or if she was tempted with the idea of being a wife to the next Godfather, do you think she would have risked it? Would she have participated in Michael's murder? On the night in question, Deanna was visibly drunk. She is dragged off the dance floor. But what if she wasn't drunk? What if she slipped into Kay's bedroom and opened the Drapes? She's also the one who discovered the bodies of the gunmen. Did she house an accomplice? I know, it's a stretch, but still, it's an interesting angle. As for the other suspects, well, there's Tom Hagen. Having him as a suspect is like having Michael or Kay on the list. But due diligence dictates that we consider him. Yes, he had access. However, Tom respected his family. He was loyal, and he was dignified. He wouldn't have been with his brother's wife. Not late at night. Not in the bedroom. Tom would have no reason to be there, let alone open the Drapes. Alneri was very close to Michael, too. Even though, as Michael points out, his people are businessmen and can be trusted based only on that. Alneri was a lot like Tom. He was loyal. We can scratch him out. As for Connie, she hated Michael, sure. Maybe even as much as Fredo did. But she derived happiness from having Michael suffer. Killing him would have spared him of that. And besides, women in general tend to choose a less blatant, in-your-face method of murder. White women in particular prefer using poison. I mean, no disrespect, it is backed by data. So no, it couldn't have been Connie. That leaves one more possibility. Rocco, another one of Michael's people. Rocco was head of security at the lake property. He not only had access, but could also grant it. If he was the inside man, it follows that the gunmen trusted him. They would have allowed him to get close enough to get their throats slit after the botched attempt. Then again, what if Rocco was innocent?